Oh, Banana Waffle Monkey shows up after having a great New Year party, it sounds like. He says, so me and my friends were discussing Eastern and Western mentalities. Oh, that we spoke about that the other day. And we both agreed that Westerners tend to be more individualistic and care more about personal consequences, whereas Eastern cultures tend to care more about group or social consequences. And that was similar to what we were talking about. And he continues, so we were speculating as to why there may be this difference. Ooh, that's an interesting question. And I threw out the hypothesis that it may be because of population density. Because if you're surrounded by more people, it's more important to care about how you impact them. Because if you're surrounded by more people, it's more important to care about how you impact them, and vice versa. For Westerners being more realistic. So, I mean, scarcity of people turns us more individualistic? That's an interesting hypothesis. Don't have enough knowledge about history to make any any informed judgment on that. But I'm kind of want to guess that it goes further than that. We were talking about the other day that, oh man, my brain hurts, that some of the differences are linguistic, right? That this difference is baked into language. So I'm thinking that urbanization itself, isn't that quite a recent phenomenon? Maybe they had cities way before us. I know the Chinese culture is way older than like European or let's call it Westerners. I mean, China has been a thing for way longer. They've written history way longer than our written history, that's for sure. So maybe that since they have longer written history, maybe they have been urbanized for a longer duration. Since they have had cities longer, they've had higher population density, and they have focused more on that bit. I don't know. Perhaps. But when talking about causes, I feel, personally, I feel ill-equipped for it. It's, first of all, I kind of feel like, yeah, we've identified like some differences on the Eastern and Western, and most people agree, but I haven't seen any like studies that shows that this is the difference. So these are just assumptions that these are different, that these different mentalities do exist, which they probably do, but it's still an assumption. Then talking about causes, that's a lot of cultural, historical fact that I would need. But I like this hypothesis. It's like we know about this in psychology, the individuation. It's called something like that. I'm sorry if I screw that up, but like people in a crowd, they tend to become part of the crowd. Like if you go, if you've been to a concert, you've probably felt this. Like if you stand all packed together, like that, then you behave in the crowd. That's it's similar to rioting. Like when people riot, it's because the crowd riots. People come out of it later on when they're by themselves and talking about themselves in the situation, and they say stuff like, I would never have done this. No, that's not me. I'm not like that. We get a lot of reports like that from rioting, for example. But it's similar by going to concerts, or it's the bystander effect, I think. No, that's not it at all. That's more individualistic. Like if a crowd is, and also one part of it is that when being part of the group, it disseminates responsibility. That's a different topic at all altogether. Your hypothesis can see connection to that, the individuation, like being part of the group. I'm guessing as well that it's a multifactorial thing, like saying that Westerners tend to be more individualistic and the Eastern cultures tend to be more group, more social consequences focused, group focused, whatever. That is probably a simplification, right? There's probably many aspects that are completely different, but that we bake into this big sweeping statements, you know? And so, considering multifactorial, that one reason for this big difference may for sure be a denser population, like more people. Yeah, actually, now that we say, because we have been speaking about Eastern, Western, but when we've been speaking about the Eastern, we've been thinking China, high population, high density. We've been talking about Japan, very high density. And we've been talking about India, very high density. However, like a lot of the Buddhist things comes from Tibet. And I don't think Tibet has a high density. And a lot of the ideas that influence like the Buddhist and Hindu ideas, if we move away from Shinto and Chinese philosophies and more look at the Hindu philosophies, which are a bit different. The Buddhist and the Hindu are quite different. And they are those ideas are quite different, actually. I mean, it's like a third, like we're talking about geographical areas as well, because we were saying Western are individualistic, and we're saying Eastern are more social or group consequence focused. But I would say that I don't know very much about these cultures, but from what I know, I would say that Hindi is more individualistic. It's holistic individualistic, right? Because they do, their cultures look up to the hermit, right? The guru is a thing for them, right? They move out into the mountains and they do solo meditation, like they move inwards, they explored the inner world, which is not individualistic in that same sense, because they all find the same thing. Like what are they saying? I am God. Well, I am endless. It's a lot of stuff like that. Like I am the observer and stuff like that. They all say the same thing. So they have a very, that's more, so that's not individualistic, and it's not really group or social focus. It's holistic. I don't know, quite interested now in more olden cultures, like what I know about like Native American. They are like very spiritual. They are nature focused. I think that's their culture. Quite interested in Aborigines cultures. Very interesting. But I'm quite convinced of your hypothesis here that one contributing factor to cultural differences is probably high density. And like reactions to high density. Banana Waffle Monkey says that the path of Exile music in the background is so perfect for the topic. Nice. Nice indeed. Culture. It's so difficult to study. And you can learn so much by studying different cultures. Like when they have such significant big differences, it's always good to internalize. That's my thinking anyway. Since I grew up and I come from an individualistic culture, but my philosophy has always, I've always strived for, well, let's keep the reductionism going, and like we don't do assumptions, and we have modes of thinking, we have structures, we have logic and rationality, and those things. Let's keep all of those for sure, because those are great methodologies. But I kind of like the holistic approach. I kind of want to see all philosophies and stuff from different angles, because the more angles you see something from, the greater control you have over your own mind and what you think about them. I don't know if that makes any sense at all. I mean, it's so fun. For example, like look at China. They have two languages, but there's like, what are they? 10th of the population of the planet, something like that, almost. They only speak like two languages. So Cantonese, I think it's the biggest language in the world. Maybe English. Depends on your metrics, I suppose. Then like the second biggest country, that's India, right? And India has how many languages? Hundreds. And that's actually your hypothesis as well. Like if we take it to a... This was an interesting map. We can take it to like a political level, something that we see, and this is Oh, I haven't seen any data on it for other countries. I've heard people. I think I've heard people mention it, but in Sweden, it is a fact. I've looked into it. That in cities, in urban regions, there's a bigger tendency to lean left on the political spectrum. And in rural areas, there's a tendency to lean a little bit double extra elemental. Good luck. Oh, thanks. Yeah, it hurts a bit here in here. But in rural areas, people there is more right-leaning stuff going on. And one could argue that more left-leaning policies are more groupthink, right? One would have to argue that, and that right-leaning politics are more individualist or whatnot. Which it gives extra credibility to your hypotheses, doesn't it? Like when trying to look, I mean, we can say a lot about the differences of cultures for sure. That Wikipedia, it's been really studied. Looking at cultures evolve, right? They've gotta. They change over time, and cultures has to evolve. Approaching darkness. That's the way it works, for sure. Culture. So there has to be, just like other. When we look at other things that evolve, we look at like correlations. I mean, we say that we can say like an evolutionary explanation. We say polar bear's fur is white because it reflects. Wait, no, because its environment is white, right? Better hidden, which is interesting, and it probably it's very watertight. I don't know, but we can say that because it makes sense in their environment. That's why I'm thinking that culture has to evolve. So, and that gives more credence to. Wait, are they dead? Oh, it was a horrendous fight. To Banana Waffle Monkey's idea that, because now when we're talking about evolutionary, talk about the. Oh, my brain hurts. The environment, right? And one way to talk about environment is to say that population density is part of the environment, right? Whoa. Oh, made it. Nice. I'm guessing I won't get any further on this, but what you gonna do? Strength index. Nope. And so when we say Western, that if we look at nature differences, we're looking at environment, right? I'm thinking about ecology, stuff like that. I'm thinking of biomes. Here we go. Here we go. I wonder how we can see culture evolve around biomes. Like, look at this biome right here. Right here is the origin of what we call Western in our discussion, right? Smack middle on the map for some reason, because the Germans did the map. That's the reason. And here as well. Here we move down, and like we have more spiritual, nature spirits and whatnot. Where's India? It's here. I want to say, oh man, I don't know geographical areas. Oof. That is an interesting. Buddhism is right here, isn't it? It's kind of a unique spot for itself. This is an interesting correlation thing to look at cultures and that.